This is Barry Zalma speaking for Claim School Incorporated and announcing the May 1, 2022 issue of Zalma's Insurance Fraud Letter. This volume 26, number 9. Zalma's Insurance Fraud Letter for May 1, 2022 continues its 26th year of publication dedicated to those involved in reducing the effect of insurance fraud. The ZIFL is published 24 times a year by Claim School and is written by me. It is available as a total 24-page PDF at the links established in the article that accompanies this video. One of the leading articles is Chutzpah by an insurance criminal, Chutzpah being the Yiddish term for unmitigated gall, where a person, after being convicted of murdering his parents, seeks clemency from the court because he's an orphan. In this case, the criminal committed insurance fraud and forgery while on probation. His name, Dustin Jungvirt, appealed the sentence imposed following his guilty plea to insurance fraud, claiming the district court failed to properly consider which sentencing option would best rehabilitate him. In the case called the State of Iowa versus Dustin Jungvirt, the Court of Appeals of Iowa on April 13, 2022 resolved the dispute created by his appeal. The state charged Jungvirt with insurance fraud, claiming he filed false claims with his insurance carrier. Jungvirt was alleged to have committed the offense while on probation for child endangerment causing bodily injury. The state later added a charge for fraudulent practice. After Jungvirt's arrest, he was released to the Iowa Department of Corrections for supervision. The supervision didn't work well because in May of 2020, Jungvirt was arrested for assault while displaying a dangerous weapon. Due to the arrest, the court revoked Jungvirt's pretrial release. Jungvirt entered a plea agreement on September 11, 2020, admitting to the probation violation and pleading guilty to insurance fraud. He also entered a plea of guilty to 4 counts of forgery in a separate case. As part of the plea agreement, the state agreed to recommend Jungvirt, for some reason known only to the state of Iowa, for a residential treatment facility if Jungvirt was deemed appropriate for placement in the facility. If Jungvirt was denied a placement in a residential facility, the state could recommend any other legal sentence. The court received a pre-sentence investigation report, a PSI, which recommended probation and placement in a Davenport residential correctional facility. Jungvirt failed to appear for sentencing, resulting in the court issuing a bench warrant for his arrest. He was not apprehended until May of 2021. Due to his absconding, the residential correction facility would not approve him for placement. Jungvirt, after being charged with a new crime and returning to the court expressing chutzpah of the first degree, asked for probation, highlighting as mitigating factors his desire to see family, his limited criminal history, mental health and substance abuse issues, and progress he had made towards his education. The state urged the court, finally, to impose a prison sentence. And in fact, the court sentenced Jungvirt to a prison term of 5 years for insurance fraud to run consecutively to the 2-year sentence for Jungvirt's forgery convictions. Jungvirt contended the district court abused its discretion when it sentenced him to a prison term rather than probation. He ignored the reasoning of the sentencing court, who, during the sentencing hearing, explained its reasoning as follows, quote, "In every case, my duty under the law is to review what is available to me in terms of community resources and to determine what the appropriate rehabilitative plan for you would be, but to always remember first and foremost that the public must be protected. In doing so, I looked at the seriousness of the crimes, the effect the crimes have upon members of the community, your willingness to accept change and treatment, and what's available within the community to assist you in this process. The first thing that jumps out at me in looking at the file is that you had a plea agreement for probation. You were at the residential treatment facility and something happened, and you were out to warrant. Then from October 22nd to May 30th, you knew at the time you pled guilty, you knew you had to take care of these matters, and you made no effort to do so, which tells me that you were absconding from your responsibilities and obligations for the crimes you committed. It's not completely inconsistent with your criminal history. While these charges are more serious than maybe what you had in the past, you do have a history of failing to appear and a history of violating terms of probation. I do consider as mitigating any substance abuse or mental health issues that you have, but what's concerning to me is that looking at the file, case number 312, you were on probation with a sentencing date of July 19, 2018, and then comes the insurance fraud case that you're here on today that happened after that, and it appears while you were on probation, and then while you were awaiting trial on pretrial release. In that matter, you picked up all the forgery charges that you pled to in section case number 505. So each time when you committed a crime, before you resolved it, while you were still on some form of probation, you committed another crime. To me, that warrants incarceration." Close quote. The Court of Appeals concluded, faced with a clear and logical statement made by the sentencing court, properly considered the defendant's chances of reform, criminal history, mitigating factors such as mental health and substance abuse, the resources available to the defendant, the effect Jungvirt's crime had on the community, and what punishment would best protect the public. In particular, the court emphasized Jungvirt's consistent pattern of engaging in illegal activity while on probation or pretrial release. The court determined incarceration was necessary. A district court is not bound by the recommendations in a PSI due to its consideration of the relevant factors, the total lack of respect for the court system, the criminal actions when on probation. It became obvious that the district court did not abuse its discretion concerning Jungvirt's sentence. Accordingly, the court affirmed the sentence. In my opinion, it is past time, that trial and appellate courts stop coddling insurance fraud criminals with probation and halfway houses and deter the crime with real prison time. The Dustin Jungvirt had the unmitigated chutzpah on such a series of criminal conduct to claim the court improperly sentenced him to prison revealed an amazing waste of the time of a trial court and an appellate court, and his actions should have been condemned with more punishment than simply affirming the sentence. The fraud newsletter then goes on to an article about how an insurer's owner was sentenced for fraud and bankruptcy violations, where a person by the name of Jacques Andres Frym, 53, who owned businesses in the Savannah area, pleaded guilty last year to lying under oath about his income. Frym at one time owned Federal Employee Benefits LLC, an insurance company, along with real estate and other interests. Frym, a Georgia insurance company owner, was sentenced to 8 months in prison after prosecutors said he lied in bankruptcy court and on his federal tax returns. In 2016, Frym filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection to manage more than $5 million in debt, but he falsely testified that he performed no work for and had no income from federal employee benefits, according to the charging information sheet. In fact, Frym knew that he sold and was the primary individual responsible for selling insurance contracts on behalf of federal employee benefits. He also understated his income on his 2017 tax return. In addition to jail time, Frym must also pay $112,000 in restitution and a $30,000 fine. Once released, he will face 3 years of supervised release. In addition, the newsletter has articles about free insurance videos, about how an Indiana travel agent was sentenced for insurance fraud, links provided to all of the state fraud bureaus, fraud divisions, and anti-fraud organizations in the United States, a listing of convictions called Good News from the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud, a list of all health insurance fraud convictions in the last 15 to 30 days, a notation about how there is now Zalma on insurance on both Substack and Locals.com, providing special publications from Barry Zalma. To gain access to the special materials, you can subscribe to Zalma on insurance at Locals and to Excellence in Claims Handling on Substack, with links available in this article that accompanies this video. In addition, there's an article about does the covenant of good faith and fair dealing in Canada restrict reports by insurers to the police, a listing of other than health insurance fraud convictions, a notice from the Justice Department announcing a nationwide coordinated law enforcement action to combat health care-related COVID-19 fraud. Better late than never. A story about my newest book, Ethics for the Insurance Professional, 3rd edition. My videos of true crime stories of insurance fraud. An article about an insurance criminal entitled Go to Jail, Go Directly to Jail, and Do Not Pass Go. An article about how to become a practitioner of excellence in claims handling, and an article about another new book called Insurance Fraudsters Deserve No Quarter, that explains how to defeat or deter insurance fraud. There are also links to the Insurance Claims Library, where you can read about all of my books on insurance claims, insurance law, insurance fraud, published by Claim School Incorporated, by the American Bar Association, by Thomson Reuters, and by Full Court Press. Thank you for your attention.